I'll answer the question. You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth!
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. It's time for another interview. I got my good friend Brett R. Smith returning to the channel, longtime comic book colorist, artist, worked at Marvel, DC, worked at all the big companies, doing independent work today. Now, you've had some issues being a conservative within the comic book industry, and we've talked about that before. And I want to talk about how kind of like conservative, elites have decided to basically give up entertainment and as a medium to more progressive ideas, and how it's affected a lot of people's abilities to make a living nowadays. How you doing, Brett?
Good. Thanks for having me back.
I'm glad you can make it. And we are going to talk obviously about your Black Tide Rising crowdfunding campaign. You've already met the campaign goal, but it's still up on the in-demand section on Indiegogo, and we'll definitely get in some more of those details.
Cool.
Now, Brett, you've been a long time conservative. You were card-carrying Republican at one time or another, even when you were working, within the big two and everything. We do know things have changed, but this really isn't like an overnight change. These things have been kind of in the works for decades now. Yeah. What is it about like the elite amongst conservatives, like the people that wield money and power, that do they not respect the arts? Do they think arts are not worth their time, or did they just underestimate how influential they could be when we talk about like entertainment media?
I think it's all that. Mind you, I haven't really talked to any of these elites in person, so I don't really know what they think of entertainment, or if they consume entertainment, or if they're, I don't know, reading books on 18th century warfare for fun. I have no idea, but I just look at their actions and I don't see any investment in the arts. I don't see any investment in entertainment. And, they are basically what I like to call cultural observers. They just stand back and watch. And, I'd much rather see them be cultural creators rather than be just cultural observers. And, we have
that's the big thing. Yeah. Is when you look at the arts, whether it be entertainment or other mediums, it's all about the culture, and it influences the future culture, right? Because sure. Tomorrow's movie directors are kids that are consuming movies today. You know what I mean? And these things, end up snowballing. And sure. It almost feels like conservatives have given up so much ground that they could never make it up, even if they've poured $1 trillion into it. Well,
if somebody decided to pour $1 trillion into it, we can make probably a huge dent. But it's because really money would solve a lot of this problem. There's really no shortage of conservative cultural creators. I know plenty of people who I could put to work tomorrow for the next 2 years if I had a capital investment to produce a slate of 5 to 7 graphic novels, and all I would probably need to do something like that would probably be $400,000 or $500,000. And I could put Chuck Dixon and Sergio Cariello and Graham Nolan and every single conservative artist that I know who's been blacklisted, I'd put them to work for the next 2 years, maybe 3 years. You can crank out a lot of content with very little when you're working with graphic novels. Movies, that's obviously a bigger hill to climb, because these days I think you need, somewhere in the midst of 10 to 20 million to really make a film that looks authentic and looks well done and has some talent attached to it.
That's like a Netflix movie. You want to make something that actually gets on the big screen. They don't do the mid-size movie anymore, at least for theatrical release. It's got to be like, like a 80, 120 million minimum.
Yeah, M. Night Shyamalan's doing $20 million movies. S. Craig Zahler's making $20 million movies. So, it's possible. You can make great looking movies for that kind of money, especially now with digital. You're not shooting on cellophane. So there's a lot of ways you can work smaller crew. And obviously, it's like I've always said, there's tons of conservatives in Hollywood and in the creative world. Most of them are scared to come out because the majority of the work that they get from the left. So, conservative investors are part of the problem here. If there was an investment in Hollywood or in our own Hollywood, because we have to create our own, that's clear. There's no salvaging Hollywood. There's no turning it around. Nick Searcy, a friend of mine who's been on my podcast, Political Punks, we've talked about this a lot, where you've just got to create your own. And fortunately, you can do that now. Even guys like Dallas Jenkins, he crowdfunded the Chosen series about the Bible. That's $8 million. That guy's doesn't have distribution problems. He created a player. Everybody goes to his, the paywall and subscribers. And, there's no gatekeepers really anymore, unless, it's important to you to be on Prime. And I think, that is important. I think that what we create should be in as many places as possible. And you can do that too. Amanda Milius has no problem getting the Plot Against the President on every single platform, including Amazon Prime and Apple TV. And so, it's not for a lack of conservative creators. It's not for a lack of stories. It's not for a lack of content. There's a ton of things that we could do. It's a lack of investment. And, at the end of the day, you've got to ask yourself a question: is the reason that they're not investing in content creation via pop culture entertainment, whether it's TV, movies, animation, or comic books and graphic novels, is it that they want some kind of fast rate of return? Is it that they don't understand how this industry works, so they don't know how to invest? Or is it because they don't put any value in it? And I honestly don't know. It might be a little bit of all of them.
I'm always it always feels like, at least, just what I've read and everything, it feels like there's a large skepticism about the value that comes from the arts, as far as, if you're a businessman, do I really want to go fund art? Or I could go fund this plant, or I could go fund this research that, potentially have this big product coming out. And they don't realize is when within the arts is the effects on the culture. And it's very short-sighted, because when you're doing these kind of investments, these are like really long-term investments. They might not pay off for like 30 years.
Right.
Because your people are consuming these things and kind of grow up with it.
Well, and something else in entertainment that they have is, people might invest in, they have kind of like mutual funds in entertainment. Mm-hmm. And, you invest in a slate of shows, right? And maybe one of them hits, like Seinfeld, and you make a lot of money off of a percentage of an investment you made in a dozen shows. So it would be advantageous to have someone in finance set up something like that on our side, where a potential investor would invest in some, a slate of right of center content creation. And, that money would be spread amongst a number of different projects to spread out the risk. Also, you create more content that way, and from the sense of it being multimedia, because some of that would be animation, some of it would be graphic novels, some of it would be maybe a feature film or a TV series. So I think there's ways of doing that, which make it familiar to the investor class. It's just, I don't know how to set something like that up. That's not my forte. I create best-selling graphic novels. I'm not an investment guy. However, it's not like the people that we're talking about don't invest money already. They invest money in think tanks. They invest money in white papers. They invest money in politicians and PR campaigns, and they spend a lot of money. I mean, these are people that spend a lot of money every 2 to 4 to 6 years, depending on, what's going on within American elections.
Yeah. Who wants to influence kids when I can influence lawmakers?
Right.
But those kids are going to be lawmakers.
There's kind of this old habit of just pumping money into these institutions that they find, acceptable or comfortable or familiar, or, I think that there's a real disconnect within conservatives and on the right, from the standpoint of why pop culture is important. And in my opinion, I think it's just as important as education. I get into, bullshit arguments about this all the time. And now I don't even argue it because it's a stupid argument, but people always say that education's more important. That's where the true indoctrination happens. I'm thinking to myself, okay, fine. Kids spend, 6 to 8 hours a day at school. And then what are they spending the rest of their time with? Entertainment.
With their parents, but I got
entertainment, video games, YouTube, movies, cartoons. I mean, give me a break. I mean, when the parent, when the teachers aren't babysitting these kids, entertainment is, Hollywood is. So, this idea that we can't walk and chew gum, we can't take a two-prong approach to assaulting, storming the beachheads of education and taking it back, and storming the beachhead of entertainment and taking it back. It's a stupid idea, which is why I don't argue with people about it anymore, because to argue about it is stupid, and that's why, I've just been shouting from the rooftops since 2016, since Clinton Cash. You can spend money, you can invest money in entertainment, you can be successful, you can make a rate of return, make money at it, and influence the culture all at the same time. And all of these conservatives who believe in free markets don't seem to be interested in influencing the culture, creating pop culture, and being successful and making money at it at the same time. I mean, to me, why hasn't there been a sequel to Clinton Cash? Why didn't we go and take Peter's other books and turn them into graphic novels? I don't know. It was just an Amazon #1 bestseller. It was just a New York Times #1 bestseller. That's all. I mean, these are just, this is the wall that I run up against. It doesn't make any sense to me. So I don't wait around for these people. I just try and make my own stuff and create my own stuff and work with other people who also don't want to wait around for these people. Because if we wait around for these investors to finally figure out that animation is important, it's not just cartoons. My Little Pony is now woke and is teaching leftist activism. So it's like, the attitude is that amongst the investor class and people on the right who don't think pop culture is important. Well, I'll just make this point. If we're not going to make the animation, if we're not going to make the graphic novels, if we're not going to make the movies, if we're not going to make the TV shows, and we're not going to create the art, we know who will, and we know what it's going to look like. So you can take the rarefied air that you're not going to get in the game and compete with these people, but you just got to understand something. To take that attitude means that you're basically shutting yourself off, and you're closing your world from a lot of people that you could influence. A lot of people that are on the fence, that haven't made a decision, whose kids haven't been influenced. You could make a difference. So if that's important to them, it certainly doesn't show. But at the same time, I am seeing, a couple book publishers start to do some of their own conservative kind of branded books for children, and there's a couple out there. I don't really want to name them because I don't want to talk shit about them, but I'll just say that some of them look good, some of them could look better. But the problem I have with them is they're blatantly being produced to preach to the converted. So and look, I've done stuff that preaches to the converted too, and I think there's room for that. But what I don't see happening is people on our side that's making things that are made for a more mainstream audience.
And another thing that we're seeing is, with yourself, and like we'll take the Gina Carano situation, just merely expressing your conservative opinions online will get you removed from your project. Or you look at what Roseanne did, which obviously was probably a little bit more outlandish than what Gina Carano. That got her it got her removed from her TV show, which was very successful, making a lot of money. And they end up having to shut that down because it wasn't successful without her. Or then you even look at Tim Allen, who's not really outspoken, and they just took his show away from him anyway, even though it was successful.
Yeah, I mean, that show got picked up again because it was so.
Yeah, it ended up getting picked up at Fox, I believe. But
right, and then
there was no reason for that to be shut down to begin with.
Yeah, and neither was Roseanne. But what Roseanne got fired over wasn't the reason why she got fired.
So no, they were looking for a reason. Same with Gina Carano.
Yeah, I mean, basically, in a lot of ways, both of those actresses were normalizing people on the center right in a way that cut against the media narrative that we're all a bunch of racist, bigoted, homophobic Nazis. So, I mean, that's Roseanne's show was teaching people that, your family members and the people that you love might have different political views than you do. And that's perfectly okay and acceptable and normal in America. And at the end of the day, you might disagree on the direction of the country, but we love and respect each other. And we never let anything get.
That's a dangerous message in today's climate, Brett. I don't know if you noticed. People are being told that you have to give up family members because you have a political disagreement. It's insane.
Well, yeah, and really we're seeing the balkanization of America. I mean, there's more people fleeing blue states to red states, and a lot of those people are Republicans. They're leaving California. They're moving to Florida. There's more people moving to Florida that are registering Republican right now. It's like a 2-to-1 margin. So there is a balkanization going on. There's a national divorce, a separation, and it's a separation amongst blue and red states. And, you're seeing that within art and entertainment as well, even though we might not get as much as we'd like. You still get, you're getting more, I think, movies from conservative creators than you did, 5 or 6 years ago. With Gina, you've got, Daily Wire and her new movie, which is going to be, sounds great. It's based on a story written by the guy that did The Hitcher. So Daily Wire's doing it. I don't agree with necessarily how they're doing distribution, but I'm happy they're making movies. I'd certainly like to buy them on Blu-ray and have a hard copy and not have to subscribe to some website in order to watch it. But they're doing their thing. They're, I guess that's their way of building their brand, I guess, even though, I have a real issue with it. I think, I look at what Dean Cain and Kevin Sorbo and Nick Searcy, those guys all make their movies and their documentaries, and they put them out on digital for purchase or for rental. You can buy a hard copy. I think that you got to be able to, adapt to the market and get it out to people in different ways, because everyone has their own particular way they like to own movies these days. You get back to, the right and messaging. Ultimately, what they're not embracing is storytelling, yes. Right? The left embrace storytelling. The right have not embraced storytelling when they don't even understand that the way that we communicate with each other each and every day essentially is storytelling. Because if I asked you what you did today, Wes, you're going to tell me a story.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just
and if you do it in a movie, you're going to be at a table and you're going to be talking. But if you do it in a comic book, you're going to have the words as the actions as you replay what happened.
Right.
The scenes from it. It's completely different.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it'll be boring.
It's that old adage in storytelling, which is show me, don't tell me.
Yeah.
Show me where we're at. Show me where we're going. These are just sort of, the basic functions of storytelling. And, whether I think it's, music or whether it's comics or movies, there's sort of a tradition that's being lost. And I think a lot of that is just, the people, the creatives are not maybe classically trained in a lot of this stuff. Or, and maybe they don't, or maybe they don't have any interest in the fundamentals of storytelling,
Do you think there's a reason that conservatives have always or tend to embrace like talk radio Feels like they're like, that's our area and we're never going to give it up.
Yeah, I remember Andrew Breitbart used to, he's got a great line where he said, we've given up all these institutions. We've given up
keeping radio,
but we have AM radio. That's where we dominate. And he said, AM radio is crap. He said it's tinny. It sounds old. And he said, it's not something that we need to be patting each other on the back over, essentially. Okay, so fine. We have AM radio. Great.
It is transitioned a bit to podcasts, but not even totally there.
Not really. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, there needs to be conservatives creating art, music, entertainment, and they need to be doing it with a level of authenticity that is done on the left. Otherwise, it's going to look like a Hallmark movie. It's going to look like some B movie. That's something I stressed to Steve Bannon and Peter Schweizer when we were talking about doing Clinton Cash. I said, if you're going to do this, do it right and hire, give me the means, meaning give me the budget to go out and hire a bunch of killers. Don't do this. Don't make this a Kirk Cameron B movie crap. Okay. Don't make this Left Behind Part 27. I said, make this American Sniper, make this The Passion, make this Unforgiven, put some money, because I said, at the end of the day, I said, that money gives me an armor to go into battle with. It gives me troops. It gives me transport. It gives me ammunition, and give me the best, kit me out with the best. Okay. This is war. So give me the means that I need to go to war with the best army available. It reminds me of Ford versus Ferrari, when, Carroll Shelby finally says to, the Deuce, Henry Ford II, he just says, you can't rule by committee. You can't buy yourself a win. You got to put me in control. You've got to trust me and trust my guys, and finally, the Deuce says to him, go to war, Carroll, go to war, and I love that movie. It's such a throwback. It's a really good movie. All kinds of great right of center messaging in that movie. And James Mangold is a tried and true leftist. I mean, he is a total liberal, but he made a movie about fathers, about masculine men who drive, internal combustion engines powered by oil and gasoline as fast as they can, putting their lives at risk to do something called competing to win. That movie is just an absolute throwback, but it's the only way that Hollywood can tell stories about fathers and father figures and masculine men is by going back into history.
Yeah, they try to change it up with the war movies. I don't know if you noticed this with like Green Door or whatever, and everybody just they can tell when they see the trailer, they're like, nah, that ain't the war movie for me.
Yeah, but
I'll wait for American Sniper.
Well, yeah, and that's one of the points I made to Steve and Peter. I said, why do you think Clint's movies do so well? It's not so much Clint. It is Clint, but Clint goes out and hires great people. And Clint's even said in interviews, look, I get all the credit, but, I surround myself with great people, with really great top tier talent. And then I don't have to really worry about them. I just have to worry about my job. And on Clinton Cash, that's exactly where I found myself. I had a budget to go out and hire really, really great, talented people. And therefore, there was less risk in the overall product that we ended up creating. Mm-hmm. If I had a bunch of unknowns and people that I'd never worked with, and I didn't have Chuck Dixon, I didn't have Paul Ravoche, I didn't have Sergio Cariello, I didn't have Graham Nolan, I don't know if that book ever would have been made. But I had these guys who, I didn't have to worry about, were, be at the top of their field, absolutely the best of the best. And all I had to do was basically turn them loose. And fortunately, on that one, which was backed by a conservative investor, I'm not going to say who, I know who, but and she was very generous. We had, I was able to put together a fantastic team, and then we turned out a great book.
Well, speaking of that, you've put together another fantastic team with Chuck Dixon on it. You've got Black Tide Rising. We talked about this the last time you were on here, but you hadn't even started the crowdfunding. The campaign itself is over. It's fully funded, but it's still in the in-demand Indiegogo section. So if people want to go and back it, I know you're actually coming up pretty close to actually being done on all the production.
Yeah, we're probably about a month and a half away from being done. We're updating all of our backers pretty religiously, so they understand where we're at. And it's just a beautiful book. It's something I worked on. Had probably at least a year of advanced work on. So we were able to put together a great team. I got Chuck Dixon back, adapting this book series. It's a national best-selling book series. By John Ringo and Mike Massa. And so we're, adapting this into visual storytelling format for the first time. And it's just been a lot of fun. Derla Santa Cruz is back. He was my artist on Blood. And his work is, it's one of those things where I say he's getting better. His work is the best it's ever been. And I almost hate saying that because he's always been really good. But
yeah, he's worked on Fantastic Four and some other big properties at Marvel.
But he's really doing his best work, and I say that from the standpoint that every artist grows, every artist gets better as you do the work, and you just grind through project after project. At least you should be getting better. You should be making it easier on yourself, finding new shortcuts, all that stuff. That's just called growth. But I see a lot of growth within his work, and I'm excited for people to see his artwork because it's just dynamite. So, and I like this story. I like these characters a lot. Unlike a lot of the zombie genre, which this is rooted in some actual science fiction. Our zombie apocalypse centers around a virus, funny enough, and basically gives people sort of like rabies on steroids. That's kind of our zombies in this book, and it's about a military family who has to escape New York. Has to get off the island of Manhattan during a full-blown zombie apocalypse viral breakout. So you got two teenage girls and Special Forces dad, Air Force vet mom. And what I like about it is that they're prepared. They're not like kind of like Walking Dead and some of these other ones where they're just sort of like bystanders in the middle of it and trying to find their way and trying to figure it out. This family has a plan and they implement it. Obviously you being ex-military, the plan always seems to shift at the first contact of the enemy, like there are plans and then like there are the other plans,
contingencies
kind of shift to. So that obviously happens in the book and their plans kind of go awry. But the whole thing is, escape New York, escape the zombie apocalypse and try and preserve the human race essentially. So, and it's wildly popular book series. I had no idea how popular it is. It's from a publisher, Bain Books is the publisher. And, the bulk of our backers are existing fans, which they saw the preview pages, they saw Dave Dorman's cover art and they were sold. So, it's been really rewarding.
Gorgeous.
Yeah. Dave did a great job as usual. This is the second project that I've brought him in on. He also did the cover for Blood. So it's, beautiful book. The cover turned out, exceeded my expectations and interiors as well. It's my best work to date and Derlis's, and Chuck did a great job, because the books are really detailed and they're pretty long. So he had kind of, he definitely had a challenge, but it's been fun. The clients who I'm working for, they're really happy with it. It's definitely exceeded their expectations and, we're in demand, so you can still pre-order it. And you'll get it, but we're also going to have retail sales after we ship to all the backers. We're going to figure out how we're going to do that, whether we build our own website or we partner with somebody. But there's going to be retail sales because we're going to print some extras because we know that we're going to have customers who are going to want to get their hands on it, and once it's done, and available, for 2 to 3 day shipping, essentially, domestically.
Yeah, it's been a huge success. I know you've got some other projects, but we can't actually talk about them because you're being really secretive about them, Brett.
Well, I got one that I'm working on that I'm going to start soon, and it's something that's not going to preach to the converted. So it's going to be an illustrated book series, and but it's going to be very non-political, and it's going to go in the direction of what we talked about, being more subversive, being more covert.
Yeah, when I say conservative entertainment, I don't want political crap like we're getting from them. I just want something with some values to it.
Yeah, I mean, really, when I think of conservative entertainment, I think of Captain America and the Winter Soldier.
Absolutely.
Or I think of The Dark Knight. I remember walking out of that movie and the whole surveillance state and the cell phone scene, and Lucius Fox having these obviously some real reluctance in this kind of technology in the hands of one man. And I just thought these are interesting conversations to have. Gattaca, that's a very right of center movie because it's a very anti-eugenics movie. Yes, and I encourage everyone to go watch that. That movie was way ahead of its time, and it came out right after we had cracked the human genome and the DNA. And it raises a lot of really good questions. And you can apply COVID to Gattaca in many, many, many different ways.
Hey,
from the
same thing with Jurassic Park.
Yeah, that's Michael Crichton. Michael Crichton's written many books, that have debunked left of center policies. That he criticizes them, or in a way he uses entertainment and storytelling, science fiction, to warn all of us. And I don't see it any different. Gattaca reminds me of kind of like Philip K. Dick and Ray Bradbury, obviously George Orwell. These guys were all warning us in a lot of ways through storytelling. And I just think that, another great right of center movie that, is not something that the right embraces is Dallas Buyers Club. That's a huge libertarian right of center movie. So, there are ways to influence the culture through storytelling, and they're much better than white papers or PR and marketing firms or political ads. And, the other thing about storytelling is that it's a lot of fun, and it can be a lot of fun. It should be a lot of fun, the creative process and what you create, because it's like you were saying earlier, the left play the long game. They're not really interested in some kind of return on investment, maybe on this particular project, but they invest in multiple projects. So it's kind of like they spread their risk over, 5 or 10 different projects, and maybe one of them will hit. But, it's the money is secondary to them. That old adage of get woke, go broke. That's not true. They don't care if they go broke, because all they have to do is just continue to pump the message out. And if they spread the message amongst 5 or 10 different shows, they also spread the risk of their message over 5 or 6 different shows. And all it takes is one to hit.
Well, and if you got it on 5 different shows, and it becomes the norm. You kind of get it doesn't feel.
You set a trend. You trend set, and that's something they also do really well. They trend set. They produce and they brand everything that they do as cool. And it's a lot easier to do that when you're storytelling and working within pop culture and entertainment. And then they use the leverage of the celebrity power to go out and help brand these things as cool by hiring certain celebrities to work on them or endorse them or, be a part of the creative. So, it's really masterful.
What happened to Dan Quayle, right? When he said, hey, this Murphy Brown thing that you're doing, this is an effort to break up the nuclear family in America. Oh, Dan Quayle, you old fart. La, 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 la. And you look back and you're like, huh.
Yeah.
He was about right.
Yeah. Look, did they go about it in the wrong way? Rather than go out and criticize Murphy Brown, Dan Quayle could have also gone out and said, but look at Family Ties. Or look at the Cosby Show. Let's focus on shows that have the nuclear family rather than diverting to this show. Dan Quayle, he went out and he criticized it from the standpoint of morality. And what he should have gone out and done was criticize them from the standpoint of it being a shtick in order to get viewers. Mm-hmm. This is nothing more than a ratings ploy. And I think it's cheap, and it's a gimmick, and it's goofy. And why do they want to objectify I mean, I really would have turned it on its head and, kind of done what the left does from the standpoint of isolating it, criticizing it in a certain way, and then, but also saying, thank God we have the Cosby Show, and we have, we have Family Ties, and, we have these other shows that have a nuclear family that sets a good example for culture, Yeah. Instead, he came out as like this fuddy-duddy conservative who's criticizing Hollywood and gay people, and that's not what he was doing.
The people that are outside the movie theaters protesting the last temptation of Jesus Christ.
It's stupid. It's funny though, because when Basic Instinct came out, Paul Verhoeven, who is a way left of center guy, he's Dutch. They have a very different form of government and culture. But Paul Verhoeven was criticized by the left for demonizing lesbians and making gay people out to be cold-blooded killers and murderers. And he had people protesting Basic Instinct. They had, lots of lesbians and people in the gay community going crazy over that movie, over basically, like one scene essentially. So it's funny because they wanted him to edit the movie. They wanted him to change it. And he just told them, no, I didn't make this movie for you. And this is the funny thing about the left is when they say, well, that doesn't represent me, or that's not who I am. And it's like, it wasn't meant to be. It's meant to be that character. It's meant to be Sharon Stone's character. It's not meant to be you. And it's like, as an artist, as a creator, I don't make these things to represent these people. That never even enters my mind. It's more of a representation of the creator than it is supposed to be a representation of everyone else, because that's what an artist does. He creates. You can't expect to see yourself in every single fucking portrait. It's just this narcissistic mentality that I'm special and you should have included me. It's like, no, you're not special. The characters are special. That's why they're the center. They're the focus.
Absolutely. So, Brad, we've been going on here for a while, man. We're well over an hour. I do want to say thank you very much for joining me today, kind of talking about this topic. Obviously, we went a couple of different avenues that are a little off topic because we both like movies and kind of stuff like that. I think we brought it back home, and definitely go to the link. It's in the video description for Black Tide Rising, and go support that Indiegogo campaign if you haven't done so already. Brett, do you have any final words?
No, just if you can pre-order Black Tide Rising, Chuck Dixon, Durlis, April Brown, and Dave and I all really appreciate it. Or if it'll be in retail for retail sales in a couple months as well, and you can get it within 2 to 3 days. So I just encourage everyone to support conservative creators because we don't get the backing of the big money people. We haven't gotten that yet. So we're out here creating stuff for you on our own, and the only way we can do it is with your help and your cooperation. You guys, the backers, are the ones who are taking the place of the investor class on the right. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, all of these projects, whether it's The Chosen or Black Tide Rising, these are all things that are created via crowdfunding, and so you are the Medicis, essentially. The Medicis are the ones who bankrolled all of that great artwork that we saw in the Renaissance in Italy. It was one family that paid for all that stuff. So I look at backers as being producers in a lot of ways. And Black Tide Rising, the people that did back the book at certain tiers, we're going to put their names on the inside back cover, which I've done on a couple of my books. And we do that from the standpoint of a credits page, the same way that a producer or an executive producer would get a credit in a movie. So, and I like doing that. I like including the fans because, again, we'd never be able to get this stuff produced without their help.